What started in the mud of World War I became a global revolution in warfare. We're taking a journey through 100 years of British engineering, documenting the evolution of British tanks from the very first tanks ever to the modern-day ones. We start our list with World War I, Little Willie. This was the world's very first tank prototype. It looked like a metal box on tracks and struggled to cross trenches, but it proved that the concept of an armoured vehicle could actually work. Then, Mother Big Willie. This design introduced the famous rhomboid shape. It was built to climb over obstacles and became the direct ancestor of the first tanks used in battle, Mark I. This was the first tank to ever see combat. It was split into male versions with large guns and female versions with machine guns, making it a terrifying sight on the front lines. Mark II. While it looked almost identical to its predecessor, this version was mostly used for training. However, some were pushed into action during the Great War when they were needed most. Mark III, another training variant. This one featured improved internal layout and thicker armour. It helped prepare crews for the intense conditions of early armoured warfare. Mark IV. This was the most produced tank of the First World War. It featured better armour and moved the fuel tanks outside for safety, proving its worth at the Battle of Cambrai. Mark V, a major technical leap. This was the first heavy tank that could be driven by a single person. Its new engine and steering system made it much more effective in the field. Mark VII. This design was an attempt to make the tank longer to cross wider trenches. It featured a unique hydraulic steering system that was quite advanced for its time. Next, Mark VIII, Liberty. An ambitious international project between Britain and America. It was a massive machine designed to crush enemy defences, though it arrived just as the war was ending. Next, Mark IX. This was the world's first dedicated armoured personnel carrier. It could carry 30 infantrymen inside its hull, though the heat and fumes made the ride incredibly uncomfortable. Medium Mark, a Whippet. A faster, lighter machine designed for breakthroughs. It was much quicker than the heavy tanks and could harass retreating enemy troops with its multiple machine guns. Medium Mark B. This was meant to be a better version of the Whippet. It returned to the rhomboid shape but included a separate compartment for the crew and the engine. The next one, Medium Mark C Hornet. Often called the Hornet, this was one of the last tanks designed during the war. It was fast and offered the crew much better visibility than earlier models. Next up, Interwar Period, Medium Mark D. This experimental design was incredibly fast for its era. It used a unique suspension system and was intended to be amphibious, though it never went into full production. Next, Carden Lloyd Mark VI, a tiny tankette that became a global success. It was cheap to build and served as a scout and machine gun carrier for many different nations. Vickers Medium Mark I. This was a revolutionary step forward because it was the first tank with a fully rotating turret. It set the standard for how almost all future tanks would look. Now this is the Vickers Medium Mark II. An evolution of the Mark I, this tank was the mainstay of British armoured forces during the 1920s. It was reliable and stayed in service for many years. A1E1 Independent. A massive, 5-turreted land battleship. It was designed to fight in every direction at once, but it proved to be too expensive and complex for mass production. Next, Vickers Medium Mark C, an export model based on medium tank designs. It was sold to several countries, including Japan, helping to spread British tank technology across the globe. Vickers Medium Mark D. This was a specialised export tank, designed with amphibious capabilities in mind. It showed how British engineers were constantly pushing the limits of design. Vickers Medium Mark III. A highly advanced, 3-turreted tank for the early 1930s. While it was technically impressive, the high cost meant only a few were ever built. A7 Medium. This was an experimental medium tank meant to replace the older Vickers models. It went through several stages of testing, but never quite made it to the production line. Light Tank Mark I. The start of a long line of scouting vehicles. It was small, fast and nimble, designed to find the enemy without being caught. Light Tank Mark II. An improvement over the first model featuring better suspension. It was used extensively in the colonies for police work and reconnaissance. Light Tank Mark III. This version featured a more refined hull and improved engine cooling. It was a solid little scout that helped define British light tank doctrine. Up next, Light Tank Mark IV, a simplified design that removed the rear idler wheel. It was light and cheap, but the two-man crew found it difficult to operate everything effectively. Light Tank Mark V. This model brought back the three-man crew, which greatly improved its combat efficiency. It allowed the commander to focus on tactics, while a gunner handled the weapons. Light Tank Mark VI. The most common British tank at the start of the Second World War. It served in France and the North African desert as a fast, if lightly armoured, scout. Now this is the Cruiser Mark I, the very first cruiser tank. It was designed for speed and long-range raids, carrying multiple machine gun turrets alongside its main gun. Cruiser Mark II. Originally intended as an infantry support tank, it ended up as a heavy cruiser. It had thicker armour than the A9, but was significantly slower. Infantry tank Mark I, Matilda I. A small and very slow tank with incredibly thick armour for its size. It was designed to walk alongside the infantry and absorb enemy fire. Next up, World War II, Cruiser Mark III. This tank introduced the famous Christie suspension to the British Army. It gave the tank incredible off-road speed, making it a true racer on the battlefield. Up next, Cruiser Mark IV, an up-armoured version of the previous cruiser. It used angled armour on the turret to deflect shells, a design choice that would become common in later years. Infantry tank Mark II, Matilda II, the legendary Queen of the Desert. Its armour was so thick that most early German guns simply could not pierce it, making it a hero during the North African campaign. A-14 Heavy Cruiser, an experimental heavy cruiser that tried to combine thick armour with high speed. It proved to be too complex, was left without a completed hull, and was eventually cancelled in favour of simpler designs. The same applies to the A-16. Infantry tank Mark III, Valentine. One of the most reliable tanks of the war. It was small and sturdy, and so many were built that they served with distinction from North Africa to the Eastern Front. Now this is the Cruiser Mark V, Covenanter. This tank looked sleek and modern, but it was plagued by engine overheating issues. Most were kept in Britain for training rather than being sent overseas. TOG 1. This massive machine was designed by the same men who built the first World War tanks. It was meant to cross mud and trenches, but it was far too slow for modern warfare. TOG 2. Even bigger than the first version, this giant tank featured a long hull and a powerful gun. While it never went to war, it remains one of the most famous experimental tanks today. Next, Cruiser Mark VI, Crusader, an iconic symbol of the desert rats. It was fast and looked aggressive, though it often struggled with reliability in the harsh heat of the Sahara. Infantry tank Mark IV, Churchill, a heavy tank known for its incredible climbing ability and tough armour. It could go where other tanks couldn't, and became a legendary support weapon for the infantry. Now this is the light tank Mark VII, Tetrarch, a unique light tank designed to be carried by gliders. It was used by paratroopers during D-Day to provide immediate armoured support behind enemy lines. Light tank Mark VIII, Harry Hopkins. This was intended to be an improved version of the Tetrarch with thicker armour. However, by the time it was ready, light tanks were becoming less useful on the battlefield. Cruiser Mark VII, Cavalier. This tank was an early step in the development of the Cromwell. It used an older engine which limited its performance, so it was mostly used for training and specialised roles. Cruiser Mark VIII, Centaur. Essentially a Cromwell, but with a less powerful Liberty engine. Some were fitted with large howitzers and used to provide fire support during the Normandy landings. The next one, Cruiser Mark VIII, Cromwell. One of the finest cruisers of the war. It was incredibly fast and reliable, powered by the famous Meteor engine, which was a version of the Spitfire's power plant. A-33 Excelsior, an experimental heavy tank that put the armour of a Churchill on the chassis of a Cromwell. It was a solid design, but the Churchill proved to be sufficient on its own. Then, Cruiser Challenger. This was a Cromwell stretched out to fit a massive 17-pounder gun. It gave cruiser units the firepower they needed to take on the heaviest German tanks. Achilles, a British version of the American M10 tank destroyer. By swapping the original gun for a 17-pounder, they created one of the best tank killers of the war, Sherman Firefly, the ultimate British modification of the American Sherman. Its 17-pounder gun was feared by German crews as it could pierce the armour of even the mighty Tiger tank. Sherman 1000, a swimming tank used on D-Day. The name stands for duplex drive, using a collapsible canvas screen to float and propellers to move through the water. Churchill Crocodile, a terrifying flamethrower tank. It towed a fuel trailer and could spray fire over long distances, making it incredibly effective at clearing out bunkers. Churchill AVRE. This specialised vehicle was built for the Royal Engineers. It carried a massive mortar designed to smash through concrete walls and heavy obstacles. A38 Valiant, an attempt to create a heavily armoured tank on a small chassis. It was notoriously difficult to drive and is often remembered as one of the least ergonomic tanks ever built. Now this is the A39 Tortoise, a massive assault gun built to break through the strongest fortifications. It was slow and weighed nearly 80 tons, but its armour and gun were nearly invincible. Cruiser Comet, the pinnacle of the British cruiser tank lineage. It balanced excellent speed, low profile, and a high-velocity gun, paving the way for the future of tank design. A43 Black Prince, a supersized Churchill tank armed with a 17-pounder gun. While it was very well protected, it was too slow for the fast-moving battles of late 1945. Centurion, widely considered the first main battle tank. It was so well designed, but it served for decades and proved its worth in many conflicts around the world. Continue watching to see the modern tanks of Britain. Now let's look at Cold War. FV201 Universal Tank. A post-war project meant to create a single chassis that could perform many different roles. It eventually led to the development of the heavy Conqueror tank, FV301, a lightweight tank project from the late 1940s. It was intended to be fast and air-portable, though the design never moved past the prototype phase. Now this is the FV4101 Charioteer, a Cromwell hull fitted with a new turret and a powerful 20-pounder gun. It was a clever way to keep older tanks useful in the early Cold War era. The next one, FV4004 Conway. Built to counter Soviet heavy tanks, this machine put a massive 120mm gun on a Centurion chassis. It was a stopgap before the Conqueror arrived. The next one, FV4005, famous for its enormous 183mm gun, it was designed to destroy any tank in existence with a single high-explosive squash-head shell. Next, FV214 Conqueror, the heavy hitter of the British Army in West Germany. It was a massive tank, built specifically to engage and destroy Soviet heavy armour at long ranges. FV4202. This was a testbed for several new technologies, including the reclined driver's seat. These experiments directly led to the design of the Chieftain tank. Now this is the Vickers MBT Mark I Vijayanta, a successful export tank that was built under license in India. It was simple, reliable, and used many components from the proven Centurion design. Now this is the FV4201 Chieftain. When it was introduced, this was the most powerfully armed and armoured tank in the West. Its rifled gun and heavy protection made it a formidable opponent. FV4211. This experimental tank was the first to test the revolutionary Chobham composite armour. This technology would go on to change tank protection forever. FV101 Scorpion, a very fast and light reconnaissance vehicle. It held the world record for the fastest production tank and saw extensive service in the Falklands and the Gulf. Up next, FV107 Scimitar, a sister vehicle to the Scorpion but armed with a 30mm Radan cannon. It was perfect for scouting and engaging light enemy vehicles. Vickers MBT Mark III, an updated version of the Vickers export tank. It featured a more powerful engine and a modern fire control system, making it very popular with international customers. Vickers MBT Mark IV Valiant. This design incorporated advanced aluminium armour and a modern turret. It was intended to show off British technology to potential buyers around the world. MBT-80, an ambitious project for a new main battle tank for the 1980s. Although it was cancelled, many of its technologies were used in the Challenger 1. Sher 1 Khalid. Originally designed for Iran, this was an evolved Chieftain with a much better engine. It later saw service with the Jordanian army under the name Khalid. Then, Challenger 1. This tank became a legend during the First Gulf War. Its Chobham armor proved nearly impenetrable, and it achieved the longest tank-to-tank kill in history. Vickers MBT Mark 7. An interesting hybrid that combined a British turret with a German Leopard 2 hull. It was designed to offer the best of both worlds for the export market. And our last category is modern era. Sabre, a clever hybrid created by putting a Fox armored car turret on a Scorpion hull. It provided a cost-effective way to keep light tank units effective and modern. Stormer 30, a modern, highly mobile light tank. It was designed to provide rapid fire support for infantry with its 30mm cannon and anti-tank missiles. Challenger 2, the pride of the British Army. It is famous for its incredible durability and its rifled gun, which is capable of extreme accuracy at very long ranges. Challenger 2, Black Knight. A cutting-edge upgrade package that focuses on night fighting and defensive systems. It was designed to keep the Challenger 2 effective in the 21st century. Challenger 2, Street Fighter. This version was specially modified for the dangers of urban combat. It features improved cameras and extra protection to handle threats in narrow city streets. The next one, Challenger 3, the future of British armoured warfare. It will feature a brand new turret and a smoothbore gun, ensuring that Britain remains a top-tier tank power for years to come.